Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this presentation on middle school and what you can expect from Red Hill as your children move into this exciting new time of their lives. I'm very, very happy to be joined by Mahesh Lal, who is, as you know, head of middle school, Devin Maramandi, who is the academic head in the middle school, and Mitchell Moore, who is our head of student well-being. Before we start this evening, and I hope most people have got on time, is I'd like to just make a couple of statements because we did have some parents wanting to know why this is, being done so quickly and they've got no information and the subject selection. And I just want to remind everybody out there, and we understand when some of you don't read our information or get all of our information, that on the 23rd of March 2021, we did send out the why and how of the middle school, explaining why we had set up the middle school and the format in which we set up the middle school. And then we had a webinar where we spoke about the middle school, the why and the how. Then we also sent out the middle school journey, which spoke a lot about the MYP, and it had tons of information in this particular booklet. And as I go through it, there's so many questions that have come through, which we will engage with tonight again, but many of those questions are answered in this particular booklet. And then we've just recently sent out our subject electives for 2022, which really give a full description of the different electives and the subjects that your children will be taking in the middle school. So what I'd like to say is, if any of you have either missed these publications or have forgotten to read through them thoroughly, then I would invite you please to contact communications at Red Hill, and we will be delighted to send you another copy so that you can go through it at your own time with your child and be able to make the right decisions. Now, moving on to today, we're going to start off with Mrs. Lal talking to us about the why of a middle school, so that you're comfortable in terms of why we've made the decision and what middle school generally will look like in terms of the philosophy. So, Mrs. Lal, over to you.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Jurassi. This seems like deja vu because I remember doing this last year this time. I think the concept of middle school is fairly new in South Africa. But if we look at the ages of kids that fall in this category of middle school, we're looking at the ages of 11 to 14, our grade 6 and 7s. They're generally too old for prep school, while our grade 8 and 9s are too young for high school, hence the need for middle school. And also, I think if you look at these young teens, if I could refer to them as young teens, their needs are very different from your high school student versus your prep school student. So hence the creation of middle school. And as teachers, we generally see this. Parents probably don't, but as teachers, we do. Grade 9s learn differently from grade 11s, for example. They react differently at assemblies, at functions. And middle school is their space to grow, to be who they want to be in a controlled environment. I say that in a controlled environment. And an opportunity to learn, to make mistakes, to not be judged, to not just focus on marks. Yes, marks are important, results are important, but so is that journey of learning, which I know Mr. Marimandi will talk about. If we look at the social and the economic, why am I saying economic? Because I'm an accounting teacher.
Exactly.
But if we look at their social and their emotional,
Yeah.
thank you, the emotional development as well, they're trying to understand themselves. And during this time, they find it difficult to understand others. Hence the conflicts that we come across between these age groups. One day I'm best friends with John, and the next day I'm not, because I don't understand John anymore. So it's giving them their space. But at the same time, controlling that environment,
Yeah.
still giving them direction, still being there for them, but allowing them to to be at that age, if that makes sense.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
much so. And I think also just to let parents know that next year we'll be doing a lot more of these webinars. Hopefully, we'll be able to be all be back at school again and we can do them live. But I think, we'll be dealing with a lot of issues that are middle school issues.
Mm,
That parents in grade 10, 11, and 12 don't have to deal with anymore. And that parents in the junior school are not having to deal with yet, such as bullying. I mean, that's an issue that we see comes up again and again. And the beginning of next year, I think we're going to start off with our first webinar on this issue of bullying and understanding exactly what it means.
mm,
Because often, we've had the discussion where I might have an argument with you, and for 2 days, I might decide not to greet you.
mm.
That doesn't mean I'm bullying you. Right. That just means I'm
Exactly.
upset with you and I don't want to talk to you.
Mm,
But I think we need to start understanding this. And I think, the important thing is that children need to start to understand these things. And as you said, to talk to grade twos about it or talk to matrics about it, they're not really interested in it. They've either outgrown that phase or they haven't got to that phase yet. And so here we have a phase of students from an emotional and social point of view where we can really deal with their issues.
mm.
So I think that, there's good reason for that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that?
I think I'll add a bit later.
As we go
Yeah,
along.
as we go
Fantastic,
along.
fantastic. I've got a couple of questions that have come through, but maybe, Devin, if you just start talking to parents just around the academics and how, I mean, I know we did discuss a lot of this at our MYP meeting and our webinar there, but again, if there's a couple of things that you'd like to just say before we get onto some specific questions.
Okay, thank you, Joseph. Um, First of all, the MYP from a framework point of view really gets the child involved in their learning. The child is able to identify with their learning and the context in which they are learning. So it allows a child to actually make connection with their learning experiences, and they're able to to identify with what they are learning. So it's something that they are able to identify with, and hence they are able to understand exactly what they are learning about. So it actually supports the child with their learning. What's important is that the child obviously, first of all, take into consideration the type of subjects that they're going to be doing. So the names of what the subjects are called are slightly different. So we've got our language and literature, which is basically your English. We've got your language acquisition, which is the Afrikaans and the isiZulu. So the students will be engaging in mathematics. They will be doing life sciences, natural sciences. They will be looking at individuals and societies, which is traditionally been called your history, your geography. And we've also brought in a component of economics into that particular portfolio. The children will be also exposed to arts. They will be doing a bit of design and a bit of physical and health education. Something that is different. Traditionally, your PE or your phys ed lessons will be purely practical, where students will be asked to engage in different activities. Whereas when we look at from an MYP point of view, children will be engaging in the theoretical part of physical education as well, to understand themselves as individuals as they are growing up, to identify with who they are, and also the reasoning behind why they are doing certain activities.
So for me, what I'm hearing you say is that middle school is very much a bridge between junior school and senior school.
Yes,
Right,
definitely.
where we move from the junior school, where, let's face it, we've taken what we like to call the fear out of learning. We don't have exams, we don't have homework, and then we move into grade 10, 11, and 12, where there is a lot of examination and there is a lot of homework that takes place. But at most schools, what happens is, grade 7, you don't do all of that. And then you get to grade 8 and it's full on. and now the children buckle.
Mm.
We've got 4 years where we can take children from the junior stages of not having exams and prize givings and those and homework, and slowly through grade 6, through grade 7, through grade 8, till eventually when they get into grade 9, they're almost into full examination mode, which gears them up for moving into senior school. So it's a much softer way of taking students through that whole phase of learning. And we also then move from them understanding how different subjects interact with one another to eventually moving into the senior school, where we start to look at the disciplines as discrete disciplines, which gets them ready for university. Correct.
Yes, exactly. If we look at the grade 6s, they will be engaging in continuous assessments on there. So there's no examinations for the grade 6s. For our grade 7s, and like you rightfully said, we've scaffolded that particular approach to get the kids to experience learning, not to just to take them and put them into the deep end and see how easily they swim. So the grade 6s will be engaging in continuous assessments. When they get into grade 7s, they will continue with that. However, in November, we have where they would write their formal tests in their core subjects. So that gives them that gentle approach, getting them into engaged in their learning. But however, once we've made that transition, we've provided them with a lot of support. So our educational psychologists are on board. We've got our mentorship program that we have in place, all of which provides the student with support on how to learn, how to prepare for those assessments on that end. And as the students get into grade 8, that support is continued for our students. In grade 8, the students in June, they would write formal assessments again. But however, in November, that's when they start writing the examinations on that end. And like I said earlier, the students are provided with the support from our educational psychologists, from our mentorship program. And when they get into grade 9, both June and November, they will engage in the.
So just for our audience to understand, when we talk about continuous assessment, especially when you get into grade 10, 11, and 12, you'll find that, you get one column that speaks about continuous assessment. That is all your smaller tests and your skills that you're developing. We kind of get back to you on those and we report back on those, but it's not all on one exam. When we then finally get to the senior school, you start to write formal exams, and then that is all based on one exam. So you'll start to see in grade 6, nothing is based on one exam. We give students often opportunities to be able to think out of the box, make mistakes without them feeling they've now failed, and then we move them through that entire phase. Okay, if we can move on then to Mitch, we've spoken a bit here about the school psychologists and the whole student well-being, because we all know that one of the things, unless a child is happy and feels confident and is not anxious at school, if they are like that, it's going to affect their academics, right? Yet if they feel safe and supported within the school, their academics are much better. So do you want to just give us a couple of statements on the whole student well-being program?
Yeah, Joe, thanks. Just as a starter, like you said, it's the middle school is very much a bridge between the prep school and the senior school. And unlike the academics, the psychosocial bridge is a little bit rockier, because we obviously deal with massive changes in these students' lives, and we're not just talking from the emotional perspective, but also from a body perspective, and they start to explore slightly different things and that sort of thing. So it becomes quite a rocky road for them. So our whole ideal at Red Hill Middle School specifically is to ensure that they can actually travel this road with support, and that's the most important thing for us. So we have quite a huge support structure at Red Hill, and we're obviously growing it as we go. Next year, we have a full mentor program that's being implemented with assistance from our psychologists with pastoral care and that sort of thing. And then over and above that, so each class has a mentor who they'll meet with at the beginning of every day, just to get that calming effect.
Okay, so sorry, Mitch, just explain that, because that will be something that's new for middle school, right? So they will be starting school, from what I understand, at 8 o'clock,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
And they will have every morning a mentor period till 8:15.
Yeah, so every morning we have a mentor lesson. So they go to their mentor teacher, And it's literally time for that mentor teacher just to ground them, especially for the grade 6s and 7s, because for them coming into the middle school, it's still very big for them and they're very little. So we need that support structure from that side for them to feel like they can actually just get the day done. And it's just giving them that structure.
So touching base.
Yeah, it's just a touching base. And it's giving structure to them so they can understand. It's also for other reasons like for cell phone usage and that sort of thing that we can clarify that, because the grade 6s and 7s hand in their cell phones. It's for your day-to-day running of the class.
Sure.
Then we also have the grade heads, which are, like Devin likes to put it, the mummy and daddy of the grade. They're the ones who ensure that everything's running smoothly and that the students are going to their classes, the students are doing well academically. The grade heads are the ones that know what's going on at home. The grade heads are the ones that make sure that everything and all the teachers are on the same page with regards to every student. And then my role is basically to ensure that all of those systems are kept in place and are actually happening and working.
Right.
My role is also to work with the psychologists on campus, because we have two psychologists, two clinical psychologists. One's a counseling psychologist and one's a clinical psychologist, who deal with the daily anxieties, because there is massive anxiety in the world at the moment, especially post-COVID. And that's one of the things that we definitely are looking at. And it's important that we use those psychologists, and they are always readily available, and they come in and they assist where they can.
So for parents, if I was understanding, we would have, if we've got in grade 6 and 7, we've got 4 classes. So there would be 4 mentors.
Yes.
Right? Those 4 mentors would work with a grade head who looks at common areas of concern.
Yes.
And then those 4 grade heads would then work with you in terms of looking at school-wide issues, which you would obviously take to Mahesh if there were major problems, and if there were really big problems, it would come to me. So if I'm a parent and I've got any kind of academic issue, so just so that parents understand, I would first approach, if it was in maths, the maths teacher.
Yes, that's
right.
First protocol.
If I had a problem and the maths teacher wasn't sorting out my problem, then I would go to Devin, who's the head of academics, who would then deal with that. If I was having a problem in terms of my child's well-being, their stress levels, the way they're feeling, etc., I would speak to the mentor teacher.
Yes.
That would be the first protocol. If that wasn't working, I would then approach the grade head, and if that still wasn't working, then I would approach you.
Yes,
Right.
that's the line of communication. Inevitably, I still work closely with the mentors, and I work closely with the grade heads. From a psychosocial perspective, it just helps having that extra little bit of sounding board that the mentors can actually speak to someone if there's a concern that's quite
and
massive.
before the end of the year, parents will get a booklet, which I'm asking parents to really go through carefully, which will give the names of the mentors, the grade heads, the contact details, etc.
Yes.
Okay,
That will
fantastic.
be there.
Good.
Well, the grade heads are definitely in there.
Right.
And then obviously our contact details are in there. So we get a lot of questions already. So realistically, like I've always said, our doors are always open. So if you need to ask,
Okay, fantastic.
you may.
Good. Okay, let's get through some of the questions, and then I will ask the 3 of you to answer those specifically. We'll deal with subjects and subject choice electives. And there is a question here about the reduction of electives with grade 8 students. Look, tonight we're talking to mainly I would imagine those are going to be in grade 6 and grade 7. So just very, very briefly, the only electives that they have to choose between going into grade 6 and grade 7 is basically dropping one of the art subjects.
That's it.
Because we're wanting to give them a more in-depth experience in the arts. In prep school, in junior school, they're just getting a taste of all of the arts. Now we move into middle school and we want to start going into more in depth. And then when they get into senior school, most students generally then take one art subject because they're going into a lot more depth when we get into that school. So really it's about taking, all of the children in grades 5 and grade 6 at the moment are doing art, they're doing drama, they're doing music. And really the question is, well, out of the 3, which one don't you like the most? And you drop that subject.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Yeah, that's entirely correct. As parents, it's a decision that you need to make with your child, and I know that I've had quite a few emails come through in terms of parents and students finding it difficult to make that decision. But what parents also need to understand, it's that as a school we are allowing the child to take ownership of their learning. We're creating an environment where children are making decisions about their learning at the end of the day. And what it will allow is that, like you said, Joseph, is that it'll allow the child to explore their passions at the end of the day, and it will give them that time to do so. Yeah.
And I think let's make it very, very clear. In grade 6 and 7, if a child at the end of grade 6 feels they've made the wrong decision, I mean, we can always look at them changing. I mean, they're not making
Yes.
lifelong decisions here. You know, there's not going to count against them for the rest of their
Most
life.
definitely.
But remember, this is the first stage of children making one decision.
Mhm.
When they get into grade 9, they start to make a lot more decisions of
Exactly.
dropping subjects.
Mhm.
Then into grade 10, even more. And then
Mhm.
grade 11, again. So we're really, what we're saying is, this is the first discussion that you're going to have with your child, and it's a simple one.
Mhm.
3 subjects, drop 1. Eventually, they're going to be taking 17 subjects and they've got to drop 8.
Right.
So it gets more difficult. So I would say, really, don't be concerned. I would imagine most kids know if they've had enough of playing a musical instrument, or they don't want to be on the stage anymore, or if they really don't like painting or drawing. And I did speak to Mr. Watt, who is head of our visual and performing arts, and he said, you know, if you've really got a problem, he's taught most of the kids, give him a ring, he'll help you make that decision.
Yes, most definitely.
Just moving forward in terms of getting into, you know, grade 8, we offer one additional subject choice, and that's into grade 8, and that is maths support.
That's
Now, we really spoke about this in depth, and we believe that instead of getting to a stage where a child, you know, is forced now to do mathematical literacy because they haven't had that support, we've actually now said, when you get to grade 8, right, you can drop another art subject and pick up maths support. That maths support class will be a class that will aid the student in areas where, in a bigger class situation, they might have missed a couple of key concepts. And then into grade 9, they can continue with that. And going into grade 9, the kids then they are doing, as Devin, you said, individuals in society, and they're doing sciences. Now they start to choose more discrete subjects.
Yes.
And then, you know, they can start to drop some of the pressure of taking so many subjects. But we'll get to that when your child gets to grade 9. There have been some questions around subjects such as accounting and French. Those haven't been dropped from the curriculum. Those are just, you pick those up in grade 9.
That's
Those
right.
are additional subjects that come in grade 9. Can you extend the deadline to choose your child's art subjects? You know, we do have deadlines for a reason. You know, we've given parents 5-6 days already to make up their mind. We have to put timetables together. We've got 3 more weeks of school. We got to know which teachers are teaching which subjects. So really, we'd prefer not to extend the deadline, for you to have a conversation tonight. When is the deadline? Tomorrow? Tonight.
Tonight, yes.
Tonight
That's
is the
it.
deadline.
That is
So we'll
it.
extend it till tomorrow, so that after our discussion tonight, you can have that. And again, I urge you to look at the subject selection booklet. It really, Mr. Watt has done an amazing job here in going through grade 6, grade 7, and grade 8 of every one of the art subjects in depth. I was incredibly impressed when I read this. So if you don't know and you need more information, please look at that, and I'm sure you'll be able to make up your mind. Okay, let's move into assessments and exams. I think we've covered quite a bit of the assessments and the exams, when exams take place, in terms of the framework. We've had those discussions. Do you want to touch on a bit of academic support, Devin?
Yes, Joseph, thank you. So we've really looked into the type of support that we provide our students with. And at the end of the day, we need to ensure that the support that our students are getting from the school is meaningful at the end of the day. So what we've done is that we've allowed our students to contact their subject teacher on a one-to-one basis, firstly, and obviously engage with the teacher and get that particular support. The other platform is where the student is able to attend a tutorial session, which is a much smaller group of students. And the teachers are really able to scaffold that particular learning, use different learning resources to support that child in their learning. And what we found out is that through our tutorial program, and I've been watching it quite carefully in terms of how the students are performing in each of those areas. And what I found is that it's actually benefiting the students. The students are developing skills in terms of how to learn. They are able to consolidate the understanding of concepts that they found difficult while working in a much larger classroom environment. So it has really benefited the students. And what parents also need to understand is that they have to use, as much as it runs once a cycle, parents need to also have a look at the assessment calendars that we send out, and together with their child, point out the areas or times where the students need to attend the tutorials, to give them that extra support to plan for upcoming assessments and so forth. And like I said, I have been watching the performance of the students that are attending those particular sessions, and what I've noticed is that there's a marked improvement in there.
Okay. So, Devin, I just don't want us to get into a situation when our parents feel they have to attend all of these tutorials because otherwise they're going to get left behind. I think you need to understand as parents, tutorials are there for students who are falling behind. It's not to give them additional work so that they do, that they're going to become, that they're going to get brighter. The amount of time that we give in a classroom should get most of our students to achieve their best.
Yes.
It's not about giving up your sport. It's not giving up your cultural and those activities just to be studying all the time. And the way our program does work is, we have a 6-day cycle. So children will not be having those on a particular day. So for instance, let's just take, if there's cricket on a Wednesday, the tutorial program runs and it moves around. So maths will be on a Monday, a Tuesday, a Wednesday, a Thursday, and a Friday, because it's a day 1, a day 2, a day 3. So really, if they're going to have cricket, right, they might miss one session in 6 weeks. So you don't give up on your cricket, all right, because you've got a tutorial. You miss one in 6 weeks because you can't let down your team that you're playing a sport for.
That's exactly it. Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, just going through this quickly. Will there be learning material online? I think, guys, we've moved into a world where learning material will always be online. Right, additional material is always put online. Children will receive a report each term, but different ones. So academically, from what I understand, it will be a semester. Do you want to speak about that?
Yeah, I think let me speak a bit. So at the end of semester 1, we will issue a full academic report.
And when will that be? Semester 1 will end?
Semester 1 will end in, we should issue it in towards the end of June, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll issue at end of June, beginning of July.
Yeah. Beginning of July. I think it was just before half term.
That's it.
That's when we issued semester 1 report. At the end of term 1, we will issue a mentor report. So where the kids have settled in, and obviously the mentor comments there are very important, because at that stage, they've got an opportunity to know the child, to find out a bit more from the teachers and so on. And at the end of semester 2, then we will issue our next report.
Okay. So one of the questions that have also been asked is, why can't we see assessments immediately on Adam? Parents, I need you to understand that from my perspective as a philosophical kind of thinking, right? I want you to put in your minds, if you were at work and every day your boss scored you, right? And somebody somewhere saw those scores, right? You'd be incredibly anxious because every day someone is scoring you. And we don't believe that children should be put under that. It is up to our teachers to be able to see if there is a trend developing and then contact you as a parent. But we will not be sending out assessments every day as they happen, because that really does away with the whole idea that children should be safe enough to be able to fail and not feel that their world is coming to an end. So I think that is important. Mitch, do you want to talk a little bit just about that mental comment? Because someone talks about, my child's emotional progress.
Yeah, it goes back to the concept of the mentor getting to know the child, and that mentor comment is literally about, like Maheshwari said, it's about the student adapting to their grade. How have they fitted in? If they're a new student to Red Hill entirely, then we do comment on that, and we make sure that we integrate them as much as possible. We integrate the students into every grade as soon as we possibly can. The whole reason for the mentor comment is just for us to touch base with parents, to let them know that we do know your child, we are looking after your child, and we spend time with them. We really do. Yeah.
So talking about new children, do you want to talk a little bit about the orientation day for new students?
Yeah. So this year's the first time we're going to have the orientation day before the December holidays, because what we've noticed is there's quite a bit of, and we keep going back to this word anxiety, but there really is a lot of anxiety around starting a new school. And it's something that's quite important, that we try and quell anxiety as much as possible. So we decided this year we're going to do an orientation day at the beginning of December, so they can come and experience the campus, experience a little bit of the school. They'll be meeting with their peer supporters. They'll be meeting with the three of us. There'll be a couple of activities for them to do, just so they can get a gist of the school. We've already had a step-up day for our grade 6s and 7s, which is a nice day where they come into the middle school for the day and they experience different classes within the middle school. But the orientation day is more about the ethos of the school and the ideals of the school. And we're doing that now, hopefully on the 1st of December. And then that afternoon, they're having a picnic with their peer supporters. And again, the whole concept behind that is so they can get a gist of the campus, so that they can calm that anxiety, and we can get them ready for when they come back next year. They already know what's going on, and they don't have the whole December holidays to sit there and wonder, what is this going to be like?
Fantastic. And I what's really exciting for me is I know that the grade 9s will be the mentors of the grade 6s, correct?
Yeah. So this year, the grade 9s for the first time will be peer supporters to the grade 6s, which is actually a very nice system, because when they now get to grade 12, then the grade 6s will be in grade 9. So it creates a whole knock-on effect of mentoring, which is what we technically want at the school.
Fantastic. So for parents who are not quite understanding that, when your child comes to grade 6, they get a grade 9 mentor or peer supporter who looks after them and is there for them to be able to connect with. And as Mitchell said, when those grade 9s get to matric, those grade 6s will be in grade 9. So they will continue with those relationships all the way through school, all the way through middle and high school. Okay.
Joe, can I just add something on that? I think this is a wonderful example of leadership in the middle school. So previously in a traditional school, that responsibility or that role would have been given to your grade 11s going into grade 12. And Red Hill has now provided that opportunity to grade 9s, taking on this role and mentoring the grade 6s. It's fantastic.
And I think what's important about that is we often, for the first time students get an opportunity to be a leader is in grade 11, and they've never had any practice at it. Here, hopefully in the junior school, grade 5s will start taking on those roles, and then they get a chance in grade 9, and then they get a chance in grade 11. So you have a couple of chances to get this right before finally, having to deal with leadership. Okay, first day of school. Mitch, do you want to take what should kids expect?
Before COVID, it was awesome. Our first day of school, we used to have a lot of pomp and ceremony. We'd have our marimbas playing. Parents would come onto campus. We'd have our opening assembly. We'd do a lot. However, because of COVID, we've obviously had to scale down, and we've calmed things down a bit. So first day of school is literally a case of the students will arrive. Like we say, we've already had the orientation day. We've already done all of that. And also next year, we will also have the new students back onto campus to set up their devices and all of that. So they're ready. And on the first day, the new students specifically will get a buddy in their grade that they will follow for the day or for a couple of days, so that they can just kind of, again, integrate into the campus. This grade 6s and 7s of next year. So this always confuses me. So the grade 5s and 6s of this year coming into the school next year, they'll have their peer supporters. So the grade 6s will have their grade 9 peer supporters that'll help them. And the grade 7s will have their grade 11 peer supporters helping them. So the whole idea is the first day of school, we're going to give them as much support as possible so they know where they have to be, when they have to be there, because it can be overwhelming. And parents can't come onto campus to assist like they were previously, so we have to play that role as much as possible.
And we'll inform parents as we get closer to the date where we are with COVID and COVID protocols.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Do we offer any religious studies after school? No, as a secular school, we do not get involved in religious studies. That is something that we expect parents to do themselves, and to get their kids involved, outside of school in those kind of activities. In terms of sport, what sports are available?
I have a very long list, so I actually have to look at the list. Yeah. So from a co-curricular perspective, it's quite important that we note that in the middle school, we want them to take part in 2 co-curriculars. It's not that we want them to, it's compulsory. And one of those has to be a sport. Again, it's got to do with the research. It's got to do with children of this age need to move. The amount of energy these children have is insane, and we saw that with the step-up days. We were.
And Mitch, just on that, can I just jump in there, because I want parents to understand, because some parents are worried that their children are not going to make a team or don't want to be competitive. Now, I can only talk from a swimming perspective because that's what I do. We have a lot of kids that say we just want to come in the mornings and learn how to swim. That we just want to exercise. And
I
we
think
just
it's
want to do
important that we stress that point, that it's not about the team. It's not about competing at that type of level. I don't think that's our goal in sport at Red Hill. I think our goal is to have participation and have the students fall in love with the sport.
But I think that's exactly the point, because what we've seen with the kids who've just come out to practice is that after a month or so getting better at it, they then start to put up their hand and say, I'd like to be part of the team now. So for parents, who are worried out there, remember, no one is going to force your child to be in a team. But as Mitch said, it is compulsory in middle years to do one sport and another activity. So it could be sports, it could be cricket and marimba, or it could be cricket and then a winter sport, hockey. But at least one has to be a sport. And now I'll have parents saying, but why can't they do 2 art subjects? Well, because art subjects to a large extent don't allow you to kind of be physical. And then I'll have the dance people telling me, but they are physical in dance. We could find all the different reasons why not. Please just follow us and trust us. On this one sport is compulsory in the middle years, and a second activity, whether it's sport or arts and culture.
I'm not going to go through the whole list because it's literally 2 pages.
Right.
So it is going, there are lots, but it is going to be in the handbook. So when the handbooks come out, everything is there, and it's also broken down into the summer sport, autumn sport, winter sport, and spring sport.
Fantastic.
So they know when it's happening too.
Good. Just to say, if there are any questions out there, from parents, you can get online and you can send your questions through. I think it is to the chat. It's on the chat. So if you want to put anything on the chat, please feel free to do so. Right. School hours. What about school hours, Mitch?
Well, school starts at 8 o'clock, which we've now said, and the first 15 minutes is going to be the mentor lesson. Then we have normal school, and middle school ends at 2:15. But I think something we need to really stress here is that from 2:15 to 3 o'clock, because our co-curriculars start at 3 o'clock, that's academic time. And we want the students to be on campus, whether they're sitting on the benches studying or they talking about it or what have you. That's when most of the tutorials are happening, and that's when most of the teachers are available for them to go and see the teachers. So it's really important that we stress that that's academic time.
And again,
it's not a case of 2:15, get in your car and go home. We want them to engage, and we want them to take ownership of their own learning. I think that's important.
And I think, again, what parents need to understand, that we work differently. Sport works on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Academic tutorials work on a day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So even if your child misses out one tutorial on the 6 days, they can't use that as an excuse for not attending sport. That has to come first, and then they can find out the times. They can even see teachers at break if they need to.
And realistically, we've also got the 7:30 to 8 o'clock slot. Most of our teachers are here early in the mornings already, so it's a case of it's literally as easy as sending an email to a teacher.
Sure.
I have students who email me constantly asking me questions, so we're there to. We became teachers to help.
Perfect. Mahesh, did you want to add?
Yeah, I actually did. Just for the new students to know that there will be one break, 45 minutes, and there's also an assembly once a cycle.
Right. Fantastic. Good. Does my child need to bring a device to school, Devin?
Yes, so it's the bring your own device. So we haven't stipulated exactly what device a child should bring. However, so looking at as a parent, that your child's the device that you choose for your child is obviously placed in a bag. It's in a sense that it will be kept safe as they're carrying it through and moving from class to class. But ideally, the children will be using the devices to support their learning. So it's important. As I said earlier, we haven't stipulated what device to purchase. So the choice is up to the parent.
And I suppose in the handbook we've got a device.
There was actually a device letter that went out when the stationery and textbook lists went out.
Fantastic. Great. The uniform, number ones, number twos, number threes. Again, there, Mitchell, you can elaborate on this, but we do have a multi-form, so there are different days that kids can wear different uniforms, and for different occasions. Is it?
Yeah, but basically, when we get back to having real assemblies, for instance, we have number ones, which is your blazer, your tie. This is for I hate to say the boys' side, but there's a blazer, there's a tie, and long gray pants. That's your number ones. And obviously, always, even for the girls, it's a blazer with a shirt and the skirt. Your number twos are more casual. That's your day-to-day. That's what we generally have. And then your number threes is a pair of jeans and the golf shirt. Number threes is like a different type of civvies, and students who assist at, like, for instance, Red Fest and that sort of thing, generally wear number threes, so they are identifiable, but they're still running around, so they can't be wearing number ones. Number ones are for special occasions. Number ones are for your first day of school, for your assembly days, for
Public
instance,
speaking,
debating.
And you represent your school.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And I think students will be reminded when they need to wear number one.
Yeah, that's where the grade heads also come in. They communicate that to their students constantly.
We've got a question coming through. I'm not hearing much about how new grade 8s will be integrated or mentored by the grades. That's possibly because I think tonight was mainly about our grade 6s and 7s moving into the middle school, because our grade 8s already have been in the middle school. But I understand this is probably from a parent who's new to the school. So in grade 8, what happens is each student will get a buddy. A new student will get a buddy, right? And that buddy, who's been in the system already for 2 or 3 years, will be able to mentor the new student coming into the school, correct?
Yeah, we're also taking the new grade 8s because we do have an intake of grade 8s. Numbers are slipping out of my head, but so we do have a number of new grade 8s starting, and they'll also be integrated into the peer supporter system with the grade 11s.
Okay.
So like I said, when the current grade 9s go up and so forth, then the new grade 8s will then just be allocated to those peer supporters. So they'll always have peer supporters as well as student mentors. And I think that's something that we need to stress constantly, is we'll never just leave the students on their own devices. We'll make sure that they're supported by another student.
Fantastic. Right. Can boys in grade 6 wear shorts instead of pants? It's so hot.
That's a resounding yes.
Yeah, we had a discussion around this, and after seeing the grade 5s and 6s at Step Up Day, they need to channel that energy on the field, and they need to be comfortable. So wearing shorts does make sense.
So also, just to let parents know that we are in the process of relooking at the entire uniform for 2 reasons. One, we're looking, to make sure that our uniform is more gender fluid. And secondly, we're also looking at our uniform as being more South African instead of being something that came from the 19th century English boarding schools. We understand, that our summers generally now every day is above 30 degrees. So we've got to be mindful of that. We did start the process before COVID. We got waylaid. we are putting a lot of time into the new uniform, and obviously we will give parents advance warning, in terms of when that will be introduced, but we are looking at that. What happens if we go into lockdown in January after the holidays and the kids can't physically come to school? Well, we will go back to what we were doing when we went into the first lockdown, where we will teach online. So I think we answer that one. Before I get on to some more questions, does Red Hill offer outward bound type journeys in grade 9? So at this moment in time, we've been very careful with the tours that we've sent out because of COVID. We obviously will be looking at these type of issues moving into the new year, but at this moment in time, we're holding back on most of the tours towards the end of the year and not at the beginning of the year, and we will report back on that particular issue. And in terms of international tours, just for those of you who don't know, we generally run a tour once every 2 years to Europe. We give students 2 years to pay off this particular tour. So it gives, well, not the students, the parents, the opportunity to pay it off, probably about 18 months. And they go in grade 10 and grade 11. So they either go in their grade 10 year or their grade 11 year. It depends when they get told about it, depends where they fall in line. So yeah, some very exciting news will come out about that as we move into next year. Right. Do ties still make sense as many adults no longer wear them? We agree with you 100%. And we will be looking at that within our new school uniform policy. We also do want the kids at some stage to realize that a tie sometimes is important. At a more formal event that you have to go to, even as adults, we do attend formal events and we do wear ties. But again, we were very cognizant of the fact, as I said, that ties, are something of the past, and we will be looking at that. If my daughter does horse riding 5 times, I'm just looking at the question, a week, does she still need to do a sport at Red Hill? Yes, she does still have to do a sport at Red Hill, in the same way as students who swim 8 times a week have to do sport, have to swim at Red Hill. It is really, really important that children feel that they are part of a team, right? Because we can't be in a situation where students don't understand and say, well, why do I have to do a particular sport? So we understand that it is important and that there is a lot of training that takes place in terms of horse riding, but there is also a commitment to do a sport, at school level. So they have to find the second one. We do accept that horse riding is one of the sports, so that's fine, but they have to do either a second sport or an arts and culture activity. And that has to be until the end of grade 9. Into grade 10, 11, and 12, they can just do their one sport. And should that be horse riding, well, then that can be horse riding. But in grade 6, 7, and 8, a second activity does have to take place. Will sporting activities resume on a Saturday in the new year? Well, again, we're hoping that they will. At the moment, I do know that our swimming coach does do swimming on a Saturday morning. And I know when the new structures come out of the different times that we'll be playing, we're waiting for those to happen. I'm sure there will be a lot of, there'll be cricket matches on Saturday. There'll be rugby matches, netball matches on Saturday, as was in the past.
I was about to say there are already cricket matches happening on Saturday. Obviously not now because we're going into exams, but from the beginning of the third term, we have been playing Saturday fixtures. So it's just a case of we haven't had parents come into the fixtures until recently. So.
Right. Okay, fantastic. Okay, we're moving towards the end of this session. I'm going to just ask each one of you just to maybe just sum up your feelings for next year, any last words that you'd like to say, and then if there are any final questions, I'll take those at the end. So Mitch, can we start with you?
I must admit, I'm quite excited after the step-up days to have the grade 6s joining us in the middle school. The grade 7s has always been a brilliant idea to have them in the middle school, and watching the grade 6s and how different they are as well compared to your normal prep school child. I'm quite excited to have them coming to the school, and I'm always excited for a new year. I'm always excited for something different. I'm always excited for change. So realistically, from a psychosocial perspective, there's always something exciting happening. So for next year, I'm excited to have everyone here. That's
Fantastic. And I'd like to thank Mitch, for the job that he's done this year with the students. He's always there available for the students. And I would imagine that the vast majority of parents, will be able to say the same thing when they've had to get hold of Mitch. They've been able to do that, talk through issues. Please, that's his job. That's what he's here for. And those of you who know him know that he's a great guy, and he'll be there to assist and help your child to see their way through middle school. Devin.
Yes, it will be nice to finally see the middle school in its entirety as a complement of students from grade 6 all the way to grade 9. So I'm quite excited to see that. Also, with regards to the implementation of the MYP program, obviously we'll be taking the grade 6s and 7s through that particular program. The teachers have been working extremely hard, planning, training that has been taking place. So it will be good to see the fruits of their labors in that particular sense. So I'm quite excited for 2022. It's quite shocking to have seen how fast 2021 has gone through, and I'm sure that it's
Great.
quite exciting.
And again, if you've got any academic concerns, please, Devin is your man. He's taken on a huge role this year in terms of implementing the MYP. That was, a big deal for us to make sure that we were ready to go into this. He's also been involved in getting the training of the teachers. I've walked past classrooms regularly where I see teachers planning and getting ready for this. And, those of you who know Devin's the kind of guy that never says no. He's always there to assist you. So please make use of Devin if you have any academic concerns. Just to reiterate, for those of you who are going into grade 6 and grade 7 next year, you will be following the full MYP program with its different reports, etc. And we've had that program already where we've discussed that. For the grade 8s and 9s, you'll still be engaging in MYP learning and thinking, but because parents are not used to the different assessments, you will still be receiving the assessments that you've been receiving previously in grade 7 and grade 8. So there will be a slight difference in that. Mahesh.
I just want to assure the grade 5 and 6 parents that are watching that we are aware that the grade 5s and 6s are still little. They still need guidance, they still need hand holding, and we will be there for them. So I wanted to let parents know that we are aware that they still need our support, and we're going to be there for them. Remember, they might not need their parents as much as they did when they were at the prep school. Give them that space to grow, give them an opportunity to solve their own problems, because this is how our kids learn.
And I just want to reiterate what you said there. I think academics, we can give that gift to our children, and we'll do that really, really well. But I think the gift that you as parents can give to your child going into middle school is to start letting go. Because the only way to teach what I think are 21st century skills that are going to allow your child to make it in a world that is much tougher, right, than I think any of us had to go through, are things like determination, grit, courage. And that can only be learnt by accepting that not everything is laid out for you. That there are going to be times where your child is going to battle. They're going to get things wrong. They're going to make mistakes. If you are there to support them all the time, no matter what, they are not learning any valuable lessons. Let us as educators work with your child. You need to know at the back of your mind that you trust us, and that even if we come down hard on your kid, right, we're doing it for a very good reason. And we need your support in that. So I think that really is important. Okay. Last question that I see coming up, and we're probably going to end on this, is that will non-South African students be exempt from local language electives? So, my understanding of where we're at is that if you come into the school system in grade 7, right, and you can be exempted if you're coming into grade 7, right? You need to request permission, and you've got to go through the procedure. And for that, you'll get hold of Devon, and you will individually discuss with Devon where you're from, why, what are the reasons, and he will make sure that we don't make a mistake with that, because you don't want to get to grade 11 and finally find out that something went wrong. If you're coming into grade 6, my understanding is you have to do a South African language. There is no way out of it. It's only if you come into grade 7 that you can ask for exemption. Any new child coming into grade 6, the government says you have enough years within the South African system to learn the language. But once again, speak to Devon on that one, and we will assist you in any way we can. So to end off then, and I like to see that we always end off within the hour, we don't go over time. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us. I think this is very valuable. That doesn't mean that your questions are going to stop. Please continue to ask questions of us. What I'm asking you is, as parents, if you have anxiety about certain issues, don't let your children know that you're anxious. Your children need to go into a middle school where they feel mom and dad are right on board and supportive of the school, that the teachers know what they're doing. They need to know that they are in a structured environment where there will be support, and that all the adults, that includes you as parents, are confident, supportive, and that we know what we're doing. If you give that to your child, they'll fly. If you are anxious and you show that anxiety to your child is going to come to school being anxious, because at the end of the day, they look to you for the support that they need. They need you to be courageous. They need you to know that you trust the school, and then they will trust the school. We've been doing this for many years, and our results show that we do a good job. That's why you've chosen Red Hill, and that's why we are so excited about this new development at Red Hill, and we look forward to welcoming all of you in 2022. From me, and I'm sure from the panel, have a fantastic holiday. Let's hope that next year is a better year than the last 2 years, and just go out there, spend time with family and friends. That time is important, and don't think about school during those 4 weeks of holiday. Have a very good evening, and we look forward to seeing you on campus.